Richard Bell, welcome to Strike 365.
Thank you for having me. It's great to see you after a very long time, Gareth.
Yeah, it has been a long time. We were just chatting offline about that. For me, we go back to I think 2013 when I was working at a small stint with the APFA Football Academy in Lincoln in Christchurch, and not only was Joe an athlete in that program, but this crazy guy came down with a drone. First time I've ever seen a drone in action around a football field. He did some filming, went up there, and at that time of the decade, it was big news. So yeah, you were the my first introduction to drones, and then not long after that, you are working in a local club in Christchurch, and we sat down to discuss futsal and maybe how that can be integrated a little bit into our club's development program. And I was completely novice to futsal, so I was keen to understand what it is. And I've since, not fallen in love with futsal. That would be unfair or untrue, but certainly I like the parallels that it has with football. And as a development tool for youth in particular, I think it's fantastic. So yeah, that's kind of our origin story. Maybe just while we're on the futsal, but just yeah, share to the audience what your background in futsal is, and maybe how that's evolved to today.
Well, my involvement with futsal came around purely through Joe, my son, who wanted to play futsal, and a parent of a teammate said to him, "Well, come and join. I've got a little team. Come and play." This is when futsal was privately run in New Zealand by a company called Viking. I'm going to say Viking because that's where Joe plays now, but Viking ran futsal. And it was, one touch and he was completely addicted. He just loved the game. So he played. I then, of course, the parent gets involved. I did a bit of coaching. And it grew from there. And when New Zealand football took over futsal just after the earthquakes in Christchurch, it was all around then, they were looking for somebody to kind of help them get it going in Christchurch, and talked to me and said, and I was keen to get involved. So I got involved with New Zealand football, and we got futsal under the NZF banner in Christchurch. And it grew and grew from there. And I ended up kind of finishing off managing the international men's team, the Futsal Whites, for about 4 years. That's with an Australian coach, a gentleman called Scott Gilligan, who's very big in futsal over in Oz, but he was then the coach of the Futsal Whites. So yeah, it was a classic journey. Started with Joe and grew from there. But I share your belief completely and utterly. I think for young kids, developing players, or kids who just want to play and have fun, I can't think of a better game.
Yeah, so a FIFA qualified futsal coach, the or a past mainland football futsal development officer, and the New Zealand football futsal whites team manager. So yeah, big rich history within futsal. But I haven't got you on here to talk about futsal today, unfortunately. I'm wanting to pick your brains because for those who don't know you, you are the father of Joe Bell. Joe is one of New Zealand's brightest prospects, playing over in Norway at the minute, a regular with the football, the All Whites, New Zealand football All Whites team. So I wanted to get you on and learn from a parent who's sort of seen the whole journey to date, and it's continuing, right? How old is Joe now?
He is going to be 25 this month.
Yeah, so still a youngish man, still on his journey. Hopefully another 5 or 6 years at the top level, and hopefully more levels higher than where he is currently that he's striving to get towards. So if we just take it maybe back to the start where my brief interaction with Joe was at APFA Football Academy, where that was the start of what is now the Wellington Phoenix Academy. And there's a good cohort of kids coming through. Alex Rufer, James McGarry gone on, and both those are doing good things in the professional space. Yeah, maybe just pick up from that point where just map Joe's journey just for the sake of the audience.
Yes. So he was at APFA when you were there. And then I'm sure something we're going to talk a lot about as a parent. APFA very suddenly would be a fair word. Very suddenly said, we are going to become the Wellington Phoenix Academy, and we're moving to Wellington. So Joe, we'll talk some more about that. I don't want to go into all the detail now. Joe went to Wellington, with the Wellington Phoenix Academy. He was there for 3 years, and then the next kind of crucial junction in the road was stay there and try and get a contract with the Wellington Phoenix, or go to America and go to college, hopefully with a football scholarship. He chose that latter path, so he went to America. He studied and played for UVA, a Div 1 team. It went pretty damn well there. I think he had a really good time. And around that time, under 20s, he played against Norway, against Erling Haaland, which is, and they stopped Erling scoring. And we actually beat Norway, and in the crowd was a Norwegian assistant coach for Viking, who are based in Stavanger, which is kind of horizontally across from Oslo on the coast there. And he reached out to Joe straight after and said, do you want to come and have a trip to Norway and meet the team and just see if it fits? So he did. Joe went up there, spent some time at Viking, decided to go back to UVA for a year, and then at the end of that year, his third year at UVA of a 4-year course, he left and went professional with Viking. He was there for 2 seasons, and then he moved to Brøndby, who are in Copenhagen in Denmark. There's FC Copenhagen, possibly the biggest club in Denmark, but their rivalry, bit like Victory and City in Melbourne, their rivalry is with Brøndby, who are in Copenhagen as well. He had a year and a half at Brøndby, and now he has moved back to Viking, where they kicked off on our Tuesday. They kicked off on Easter Monday the season. They don't play through the winter because of the weather, and they had a 1-0 victory in their first game of the season. So yeah, that's where he is right this second, basking. I'm not sure if you bask in a 1-0 win, but it was great to get the season off with a win.
3 points is 3 points. Take them.
Exactly.
All right, let's rewind this back to sort of the beginning, even maybe before APFA. So I guess a question. A lot of the people listening will either be athletes of their chosen sport who are already excelling, and maybe not quite at the level that Joe's at right now, or parents of these kids, or coaches of these kids, or coaches sort of on their journey as well. One question to maybe go back prior to this level of athletes that we're probably talking to, but did you as a dad spot that Joe had, above average ability in his chosen sport in football, or was it not really, it didn't really come through to fruition until later in life? How, when did you feel that, hey, sport and professional sport is something that my son could actually achieve here?
Oh God, I'm going to split that into two. The professional bit much later. We emigrated from the UK to New Zealand when Joe was 3 years old, and we lived in Christchurch. He told me one winter, I want to play rugby, and so we signed him up to the local little whatever it was. I can't remember how. I think you pulled bits of string out of the shorts of the player you were trying to tackle. There was no tackling or anything, and he had total fun. And it came to the next season, and he went, I want to play football. So we signed him up to the local club, which was a local club called Ferrymead Bays, and I think he scored something like 8 goals in his first game. Little mini five-a-side football. And I thought then, okay, well, he's obviously having fun. He's obviously enjoying it. And he was passionate about playing. So I'd have said at that stage, he was definitely, he was good. Not great, he was good. He just loved playing, and he wanted to play as much football as he could. And we're quite an active family, so it was very easy to build that in. If, whatever he wanted to play, we were going to play. And that was the first part, really. He then got the Ferrymead Bays is in Christchurch, and that falls under a local governing body under NZF called Mainland Football. And Mainland decided to start a academy. And the idea was they pulled the best players, the young players from every club, together, and they trained together twice a week, and they played together. The clubs hated it, absolutely hated it. It caused masses of controversy. You might remember it, and you might remember how long it ran for, but I'm going to say it ran for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years before the clubs killed it off. But he got selected for that. They obviously thought he was good enough for that, and he played in that environment. And around then, things, you start to think, okay, he is getting good. You're not going to think he's going to be a professional, but you're thinking he is playing a lot. He enjoys a lot. Then the futsal came in kind of around the same sort of time, and he did it. I don't know what the right word is. He excelled at futsal. He really, really enjoyed futsal, and he seemed to understand the game really well. And he was probably doing better in futsal than anything else. He was in this mainland program and things, but his futsal was really taking off. He was in the regular teams, the regular local representative teams, and that's where an APFA coach or someone who was connected to APFA saw him and contacted us and said, would Joe like to go there for a trial? And that was up to that point.
Let's jump in here.
So
APFA, right? So maybe just explain what that is.
So APFA, God, I'll tell you what, controversy has plagued our lives, I'm sure. So first of all, you've got this mainland academy that the clubs hated. So that got eventually taken apart. And APFA was a privately run academy. It was run by a couple just outside Christchurch. And the idea was 5 days a week football. They were meant to school right near the club, right near the academy, which we weren't keen on at the time. And luckily, through a little bit of effort on our behalf and some other parents, we persuaded them to let Joe stay at his school, and I would drive him. I would get him out of school early, and I would drive him. So he missed his afternoon every week of school, which he had to catch up, and I would drive him to APFA, and he would do the football at APFA arriving at the same time as the kids who were local to the schooled locally to the academy. So it was a private venture. It was that in its turn was hated, I believe, by mainland football. They did everything they could to shut it down. I have no idea of the reason and the politics of why it did become the Wellington Phoenix Academy, but possibly part of it must have been the fact that they were just banging their heads against a brick wall with the local governing body who wanted them gone, and so they became the Phoenix Academy.
Yeah,
and then we reach it.
Yeah.
Then we reach another big thing, which we'll talk about later, I'm sure, which is that decision to let him go because he had to leave Christchurch. He had to leave and go to Wellington.
Yeah, sport and politics don't mix very often.
Yeah.
Previous episode was with Rob Sherman, who's experienced his fair share of that across New Zealand and Australia. And Rob was a key leader in the establishment of APFA. And when you get somebody like him and his quality and caliber coming in to lead the football program and some really high-powered staff around it, at that time it was new. This is maybe today this is quite normal for football environments, and certainly Australia and New Zealand. It's a full-time environment where you train 5 times per week and have all the other S&C and video analysis and games and all that. It's not uncommon, but 10, 12 years ago that was new. So two questions I want to find out more about. Why APFA, firstly?
Okay, so just something I should say now. I can only talk to my experience. I'm sure if you ask another APFA parent or you get another parent on the show, they're going to give you completely different answers. So I can only speak for myself, and I can't really speak for Joe. I can tell you what I think he thinks, but hopefully we're aligned on that. I thought at the time, if I saw no reason why he shouldn't do APFA. It seemed to be the best option if there was going to be any continuation of a high-powered football existence. Whether it was going to be professional or not is a whole different matter. But he really, really loved the game. He loved playing football, and he wanted to get better at football. And so it's like, if you've got a bad, if you've broken your arm, who would you rather see? You know, the best surgeon to solve your arm, or you know, the guy on the side of the road? Well, you'll go to the best. And I thought, we talked a lot about it, and we talked to Joe about it, because there was going to be an academic weight put on him. There was no question in our mind that he was going to drop the academic side in order to achieve the football side. And one of the things that impressed us about APFA is, I believe, that if you got a bad school report, you got, you know, you didn't get the weekend's game or something like that. They were very adamant that the kids needed to do well in school, which I thought was quite forward thinking. So we said to him, look, if you're willing to catch up on the work, we will do the driving and we will get you there every day. And that's how we convinced the school that he was at, that he should leave just after lunch. So we'd do whatever that class is after lunch, and then I'd pick him up, and I would go and work in a coffee shop for 3 hours while he did his football, and then would go home, he'd have dinner, and then he'd do his homework and catch up on that missing class. So he agreed to that. He wanted to do it. He was passionate enough about the game. He could see the possibilities. So I don't think we've ever made a decision with Joe where it hasn't been with Joe. We've never said ever, this is what you're going to do. You are going to go to APFA. It's always been, being strangers in a foreign country, we're very reliant on each other, our family. Joe's got a sister. So there's only 4 of us, my wife, Joe, and his sister. So we usually discuss, we kind of chat about everything and anything. So it was like, are you willing to do this? Do you want to do this? This is the price you're going to pay. And he was like, no, I want to do it. So I thought it was the best. So I was happy about that.
Yeah, these things you're talking about are quite commonly termed opportunity costs. It's the cost of a certain opportunity that you are choosing to accept or not. And the fact that the parents and the players are, as part of this conversation, it's not one dictating the other. I've seen it go both ways, right? The parents are saying, this is what you're doing, and also the players or the athletes going, this is what I'm doing. And parents kind of, not cave to that, but, don't think it all the way through. But the fact that Joe's kind of driving that as much as yourselves, and he's prepared, look, this is the cost of this particular opportunity. Am I prepared to follow through on this? And that's the additional schoolwork out of hours and the additional travel, then that's a big part of it. Second part, I guess, if we're talking about APFA in this context at this point in time, was probably the best football environment. What other support mechanisms and departments within that program did you see it as best practice? Or was it just the football element was better than anything else around, or was there some other levels of support that were complementary to the football, which as a whole package looked like a no-brainer?
It was run you'd have a better insight into how it was run because you were inside, but it was run very, very rigidly. Rigidly is the wrong word. It was run very strictly. Sounds like a kind of, we're going to put you to the cane if you get something wrong. It wasn't strict, but it was really well organized. It was very, very tight. You turned up, you did the football, they looked after you. If you were injured, they told you how long. It wasn't any like, oh yeah, you can play on Saturday. It was very, very regimented. And I really don't think we were thinking professional footballer at that time. We were just thinking passionate footballer. And understanding all the things that get packaged up in order, as you say, the cost of opportunity. I think it's good learning. It's great for him to have had that opportunity to sort that stuff out.
At a young age without being too young. So I guess, without trying to stay on the APFA topic, one of the big challenges for them was they wanted to, this is my opinion, act and be a professional entity, but they didn't have the professional team element playing in a professional competition. So for me, it was a pretty smart business move from both the Phoenix and APFA owners to kind of get together and go, let's call it, professional football academy, because it's kind of what we operate as, but we don't have the effectively the badge. So up they moved to Wellington. They attached New Zealand's only professional club at the time, and kind of build out to what is now the a fairly, I'd say, very successful academy system, where they're bringing through talented young Kiwi players and then sell them off overseas, as well as filling their first team. So a lot of things have evolved over those sort of 8 years of doing it, but I guess we're now in Wellington, so you've highlighted a couple of times the decision around, what's next? Do I follow this program to Wellington, which creates its own new set of challenges of leaving the support network? Just talk me a little bit around the decision process you made.
Yeah, I think that's. I think this is possibly the first moment my wife and I thought, okay, there is a possible career here, because the decision was so huge. In Christchurch, even though APFA was a 30-minute drive away, you know, sleeping at home, family all around, every minute he wasn't playing football, he was with his family. So when the Wellington decision came up, it was, for a parent, it was out of the blue. We didn't know this was going to happen, and we had to make a decision very, very quickly, because schooling, there were so many things to go there. So it was a very, very big conversation for all of us. He had to understand he was going to leave home. He was going to have to board, because we don't live in Wellington. My wife was, I mean, she was fully supportive of his decision, but she really didn't want him to go. I think that's fair to say. She wanted it, the family, she wanted to keep it together, but she was 100% behind when he made that decision. And it kind of came up then, I guess, that we had to think about, what are we trying to achieve here? What is the ultimate potential goal? There is no, you have no idea of what the goal could be, but you're interested in what the potential goal might be. So again, big decision, and we said, look, it's completely and utterly up to you, Joe. If you go, we are going to give you 100% support. He had a good think about it. We had lots of talks about it, many meals chatting about it. He hinted that he would like to go, he thought. So Caroline and we jumped on a plane and went to the school in Wellington. That was very important to us, and that was, again, one of the attractions, is not losing sight of the schooling. And we were very impressed with the school, so that made it a lot easier in a way. But when we got back, we said, look, we're happy. If you're happy, he said, yeah, I'm going to do it. And he made the decision, and so he went to Wellington, and that was it. That was when he left home, as it were, at 14 years old. Bit of a shock. We didn't expect that to happen. I don't think he expected to happen, but all credit to absolutely everybody involved. It worked out. There was a huge effort put in by many people into making that transition work, both, I'm sure, on a business level, making it work for APFA becoming Phoenix Academy, but also on a parent, player, schoolboy level, making it work for them. So it worked out. It definitely worked out. And in a the truth of the matter is, I think it was a crucial part of the equation, the long term. Although we had no idea at the time, it was a crucial part because he had to learn to live away from home. So I don't think without that move, I think the move to America might have been a lot tougher. And I think the move to, it's like it was a great stepping stone towards what ended up happening. But at the time, you don't expect that or know that's going to happen.
You mentioned it was a quick decision, and I feel that this is a situation or problem, whether you want to choose to view it, that a lot of parents will probably experience as well. Maybe not a decision to move out of town, but a decision that's kind of forced upon them to make quite quickly around an unknown pathway or journey of their son or daughter. So, you spoke about visiting the school. What other due diligence did you and your wife sign off on, or tick off to, or cover off, or explore before feeling more comfortable with that decision?
Um, a lot of it was pre-done because the personnel were essentially the same generally. A lot of the staff moved from Christchurch to Wellington to bed it in. Um, so we were happy on the football side, absolutely. And the truth of the matter is, Wellington is an incredibly easy trip to make. It's less than an hour's flight. It's 45 minutes. There are plenty, because it is the capital of New Zealand, there's plenty of flights. So it felt like it was a relatively safe option in that we could get there really quickly if we needed to. He was keen, the people were the same. It was once, because the school, you're boarding. The school is actually an enormous part of it, enormous part, because they're the pastoral care as well as the education. Of course, the education is critical, but there's also that whole pastoral thing of who's running the dormitories, where do they eat, the whole package was very well prepared or thought out. Even though I think it happened quite quick, it was super reassuring. So that was it really, to be honest. There wasn't anything much else. He felt confident to do it, so that's it.
Was there any agreement, or maybe the opposite side, conflict between playing for a professional academy, again, insert any sport you choose here, and competing for high school? How did that relationship work out?
It was set up at the very beginning, written clear that they were not going to be able to play for the school. That was absolutely in the thing. And so the key thing for Joe was, am I going to play? And the answer was yes, we're going to. So I think they played the first season as themselves. They generally played friendlies, and then they aligned it with a club, and he started playing for a local Wellington club under the APFA. So the APFA team played together, but under a club's banner, which I think happens reasonably frequently now in other places. So I think the first season, just playing friendlies wasn't as much fun as he wanted. But it wasn't like they sprang that. That was absolutely straight up front. I think it was a question for us of asking, we wanted to check that out. We asked a lot of questions to make sure we felt that we knew what we were talking about.
So, as a parent, how did that resonate with you guys around being told you can't, or your son can't do something, i.e., play at school? Which, there's an argument to go, well, school is just for education, and professional club is for their sporting acumen. But an argument would be, well, actually they can work hand in hand, developing an affinity with all the things that high school provides, tradition and mateship and all that sort of stuff, to be sort of told you can't do something. How did that sit with you as a parent?
a lot easier than telling us he had to go and live in Wellington. Uh, uh, so it was much smaller than you think. I mean, the battles. You know, we've got the Mainland Academy, APFA Academy. I was working for Mainland at the time as their futsal development officer. I can't actually remember how many times I gave them resignation letters over their behaviour. So I just constantly have battled all the time for Joe's interests behind the scenes. He didn't need to know any of this. I've always been so. If that's the, as long as a deal is open and you understand, you know, if you look at it, it's like, I'm not saying it's a contract because it wasn't a contract, but it's like, these are the criteria. So it didn't bother us because he was going to be playing football. He was in a very good space. It kept his growing dream alive that there was a potential professional end to this. At the time, I think now it's beginning to be, oh, I might be able to be a professional. If they'd said to us, oh yeah, you're going to play every week, and then it had turned out to be that they were playing friendlies every other week, you'd go, that's a bit not very good. But it wasn't. I have to give them credit. APFA never sold us anything behind our backs. Everything was, this is what you're going to do, this is what's going to happen, X, Y, Z. And but that's my experience.
Yeah, and these are what we said, opportunity costs. This is it.
Yeah,
You can either come on board or don't.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
ultimately your voice. I
My
think
my wife, my wife is in education at university level. So for her, the thing was the education. Absolutely, 100%. Like, she's super proud of the football. She wanted him to play football. She could see the happiness it gave him. But the number one thing was not losing sight of the education. And it was very interesting because he ended up at APFA, at the Phoenix with a coach who was very influential for Joe, a gentleman called Andy Hedge. And Andy Hedge, I think the first time we ever met him, he said, the number one thing is not losing sight of the education. And we were like, well, that's exactly what we think. So we're sold on that. You would know better than me what the chances are of a kid becoming a professional footballer, and you need to make sure there is something in the background. And so that was our thing. If you've got an education, you're going to be all right, because go for your dream, shoot big, go for gold. If it goes wrong, you've got an education. So that was, for us, I'm going to go 75% of the thing.
so.
Absolutely.
As an organisation, did they bring you and your wife and other families along this journey? And if so, how did they do that, or was it a little bit at sort of arm's length? How did you perceive that as a parent?
No, we got invited at the front of every year. They would have an evening where you could go, and the coaching staff were there, and they'd chat to you, do presentations, have a drink with them, and things like that. And the rest of the time would be, through feedback from them about anything, a problem, but there weren't really any problems, but just, Joe's doing good, this is what he needs to work on, whatever, stuff like that. So they made an effort, not a huge, not like overwhelming, but a lot of it is our communication with Joe, making sure that he was okay, staying in touch with him, finding out what was going on, and encouraging him to take. I mean, he was integral to the decision, so he needed to learn to take some ownership of that and make sure that he got what he was looking for and communicated that to us, that it was either going good or he needed to work on something or change something.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's his journey, right? Or other
Correct.
where it is, and we're all kind of helping that particular person. And you have a different set of vested interest than me as the coach, but the athlete, so Joe in the situation, needs to kind of drive a lot of those those conversations.
Yeah.
Just want to take you back to something you mentioned. That you spoke about having a lot of battles, and you had some criteria. Now, as somebody that's growing up around the game, had management positions in futsal, which is very similar. You might have a little bit more expertise than some parents who aren't, haven't grown up around the code that their son or daughter's, striving to accelerate in. What sort of advice can you share to those sort of parents around picking your battles? How did you maybe navigate the tricky waters? Because that's something I see a lot is parents not sure how to approach these issues, who to speak to directly about it. Do we make a big song and dance of it? Do we try and go around around the side of the corner and go in the back door? Do we, have a more quiet conversation? Like, what would your advice be to kind of parents in that boat?
God. Number one is pick your battles. Make sure you know the ones that actually really matter. Don't get swept up in the football. Would be another thought, maybe. There's always a lot of people who promise X, promise Y, promise Z in terms of football, but trying to work out what was a cloud thinking and what was solid ground. Fight those battles that you actually can comment on and know on. If a coach told us, well, Joe needs to work on this particular thing, I'm not going to fight over that. You're the coach, you know what I mean? That doesn't, I don't know that. But if you're going to tell me that Joe is going to miss 3 weeks of school in order to do something, well, that's something I do know about, so I can talk about it. I mean, I have been lucky. My career is in filmmaking and film production around the world, so I am lucky on that, because every single commercial you shoot in Morocco is going to have 58 battles per day, as nothing ever is. It's even more intense maybe than sport, because they've got to be solved right now. There's no chance. We have to solve it now, because otherwise we can't move to the next point, to the next, and so on. So I had got experience of that, but I think even outside of that, it's, pick your battles, know what's important. I've seen many people get really antsy about stuff, and I'm going, why are you worried about that? That's it's not worth fighting over that. The other thing we always used to say to Joe, whenever we reached, excuse me, the other thing we always used to say to Joe whenever we reached tricky decisions was, talk to your coach. We always encouraged him, talk to your coach. Don't moan to us. Don't come to us with an issue. Go and talk to your coach and get some full understanding, because often things get magnified, changed, twisted, whatever, Chinese whispers or whatever. Just go to your coach and say to him, hey coach, this is a situation, can you put some more light on it, and then come back to us, and then you can get, because again, I've seen too many battles fought over poor information. Make sure you know what it is that the actual problem is. It may be presented as this, but it's not actually that. The problem's this, but it's been framed here, and it's only been framed there because you don't have the information. So communication. I mean, it's what films survive on in production, and I think it should be part of the football landscape. We made every effort we could to do that.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. And little bits of information are probably more dangerous than no information, because you kind of form your own opinion or perspective. So, as a coach and as a program lead, a big part of my job is answering questions from stakeholders. So it's part of my job. It's part of what I do every day. So don't be afraid to actually reach out and ask if you're not sure or want further clarity. And if you're not getting clarity, then push again a little bit further, or find another way to get that kind of information, because you're right. So I want to move on a little bit. So Joe now gets himself in the US college system. He's overseas. It kind of would be the same kind of question, I guess, when he was in Wellington. So your role now as a sporting parent changes from he lives at home to now he's not at home. Now Wellington's, same country but same time zone. America's a little bit further away, but it's not like you can see him every day. So what maybe shifts on that bigger move now? How are you supporting Joe as he's sort of now firmly finding his own feet and his own path?
Okay. Okay. So going just dropping back, I mentioned earlier that in retrospect, APFA moving to Wellington and all the discussions we had, all my wife's, sadness over Joe leaving home. Thank God it happened. It's bizarre, you think, wow, you went through all that and everything, but if it hadn't happened, I think the step to America could have been just possibly too big. Who knows? But it wasn't, because it was just another step. Okay, I agree with you, it's further away, but it was just another step. He's now a young man. He's absolutely now, in his head, he wants to be a professional footballer. I remember sitting in the office at UVA when we went on our look around, and George Gelnovac said to Joe, I was allowed to be in there, but he didn't want me to participate. And he turned to Joe and he said, Joe, what do you want to be? And Joe looked him in the eye and said, I want to be a professional footballer. And George went, okay, we'll make you a professional footballer. If that's what you want, we'll do it. And so by now, it's absolutely integral that he wants to be a professional. Of course, he may not make it. There's still a million hurdles and things like that. But he's in his head, he wants to be a professional footballer. You just, as everything expands. You spend more time on FaceTime and Skype. You get to see him. We got to see him. We always went once a year. We always see him once a year, wherever he is in the world, minimum. So we got to see him over there. We'd go over every year. We went over as a family. We took my daughter over one year, so she got to spend time with him and be with him. But outside of that, again, I felt then confident. He'd managed Wellington so well. You feel, okay, if again, it's the cost. It's the cost he's got to do. I didn't see a way of him going to where he wanted to be, staying in New Zealand. So if you want to carry on this journey, you have to go to America. Again, the education's great. You're going to get a degree at the end of it. An interesting thing, and this is something I would say, and I've said this to many, many people, many, many parents who've asked me, the one thing we did do that I am really, really pleased that we did was when he said, I want to go to America, and we entered the game where you send out the show reel, you contact every university and you field whatever comes back. We got a little list of the universities who were interested in him, and I took 2 weeks off work and I took him to the States, and he and I went from motel to motel, and we visited as many, because there's a limit, there's rules there, how many colleges you can visit, how long you can visit them, which ones, there's all sorts of rules. So I think we saw as many as we were allowed in the time we were there, and that was the best thing I think ever we could have done. A, the two of us, but B, the list we went with did not reflect the list we came back with. We had it all, so not going, again, we did it for the Scots, it was just a thing. And again, I guess I'm lucky with my job that I could take that time off and go, right, I'm going to go, I'm not going to work, I'm going to go and do this. That was really, really important, I think. So, he's going to be entering into a very large family, because there's going to be 24 players, there's going to be a bunch of coaches, and I think until you've seen, I'm sure you have, but I think until you've seen the American college system for sport, you have no idea. You cannot fathom the investment, the effort, the professionalism of it until you've seen it. You know, we went to one college and they took us into their indoor American football stadium, their indoor one. They had an outdoor one for playing in. They took us into their indoor one just to show us. And they said, this is our winter one. We have a summer indoor one that's just down the road. I mean, you're coming from an environment where you're, you know, wheeling a couple of goals out on a pitch that you found, to a space where they have 3 American football stadiums. Admittedly, American football is bigger than soccer, as they call it, but the professionalism is through the roof. It was through the roof. So it was, I was really excited for him then, because I thought, well, if this is going to be a big moment for you, because you're going to get the best non-professional professional taste ever. And if you can get through this and it suits you, then you might become a professional.
I can see it all over your face. You're an advocate for the US college system.
I think it's, I'm sure the landscape has changed a little bit. Absolutely. You know, it was a fair few years ago that Joe was there, but at the time, outside of the Phoenix, if you did the Phoenix Academy and the Phoenix did not offer you a contract, it was almost a dead end in professional terms. Yes, you can probably play at high level, national level in New Zealand, but if you want to be a professional footballer and earn a substantial living that way, it kind of is really the next way. And you get an education, you're going to get a degree, you know, you're going to come out with a degree. And I think it was just incredible. You know, the athletes had their own academic building. So they would train in the morning. He would get up at 6 a.m. every morning and they would train. They would not allowed to take lectures on any course that only had morning lectures. They would then go to have lunch, go to lectures in the afternoon, so they could take courses that had lecture opportunities in the afternoon. And then they would go to the academic learning center, which was all set up to make sure that they did well academically. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of it. He had a great time. I think he really enjoyed it. Had very good coaches, great opportunities. So yeah, I think it's and I know of many players now, because you know they talk about it with us, who maybe didn't go to the same university or went elsewhere, but I think they all had a really great time. You know, and it is.
Let's just dig into this a little bit without spending too much time on it, because there's other episodes where we dig a lot into it.
Yeah.
But if Joe was about to, you know, open this door, which could be a US college scholarship or not, what would you do? What would be the first couple of steps you would do as a dad to make sure you're going to get the best outcome for your son who's an athlete?
So I honestly, I've said this to every single parent who's ever asked me, you have to go and have a look. You have to go. Do not send your kid without, you know, there are school holidays, there are opportunities in that, and build it into it. It has to happen. I think I've seen too many where people haven't gone to look, and maybe it wasn't as good as they wanted, or wasn't exactly what they wanted. Once you're there, you're back in the communication thing, because you can ask the question, you can look the coach in the eye and ask them a question and say X, Y, Z, and they will give you an answer. And you can see the kind of facilities you're playing at and the level you're playing at. And yeah, I mean, at the colleges he was allowed to spend time at, he did a training session at every single one. He was allowed to, some he wasn't allowed to train, but some he was allowed to watch a training session. He wasn't allowed to train, but he was able to watch a training session, sit at the side and watch it happen. All that, there's no physical way, there's no practical way, there's no any way you could do that without going over and having a look. So that would be my absolute golden rule. You've got to go and have a look.
Brilliant. did you use an agency or did you do everything off your own bat?
We did use it. No, we did use an agency to get his reel out, and so they helped us and advised us to and everything, and they fielded the first batch of people who were interested in Joe, and they said, look, here's the list. Have a look, and we could talk to them and say, well, what do you think of this one? What do you think of that one? Da 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 da. And we got it down to a 2-week trip. So that was it. And then when we got there, somehow a couple of universities found out that we were there and got very shirty that we didn't go and see them, and rang the agent and said, how come they're here and they haven't been to see us? So we actually managed to bolt in 2 extras, just day trips. They were allowed within the system. So yeah, we did use an agent. She was fantastic. Because it's just the scale. I think for somebody who, I'm lucky, I've spent a lot of time all over the world, but I think for someone who'd just been in New Zealand, for example, you cannot comprehend the scale of this thing, this operation. We'd go to UVA. When we went to see Joe at UVA, we'd often, if it fitted, we'd go and watch an American football game. So this is a college football game, and there are 80,000 people watching a game of college athletes. I mean, yeah, I'm talking about American football, but you have no idea. You can't. Even I was like, this is nuts, So and that carries through. So the soccer. Sorry, I hate to use the word. So I like football. The football team have to be as professional as that, because they don't want to be we don't want to be the weaker. We don't want to be the joke team. We're going to be as professional as the American football team. So it was huge. The step up, huge.
It's a big conversation piece. It's come up in past conversations. I have a connection with Platform Sports, and I'm going to get their owner to come on for an episode shortly. We're just going to dedicate the whole conversation to this pathway, this process. So keep a listen out for that. Put a link in the show notes. Platform Sports, and those guys are great. They'll start the process. So whilst I guess Joe's in the States, he's now getting involved with New Zealand football through the under-17s and through the under-20s. So, maybe just give me your little quick reflections around, what it's like as a sporting parent for your son or daughter to, get national recognition. Did things change? Does the pressure ramp up a bit? Is the expectations higher? Is it more of a burden for you guys, or is it the opposite? It's kind of a bit of validation. It's a bit of pressure's off because other people are seeing what we've sort of been trying to invest in.
I think it's just a sense of pride for him. There's nothing better than watching anybody, whatever they want to do something and be appreciated for it. So I was super proud for him that he got those opportunities. It was great. We made an effort to go to them, because you always think, well, okay, he's in the under-17s, that's it. But at least we're going to go and watch one under-17 World Cup. And then, we went to that. It was so much fun discovering another culture, being involved with football in another country like that. Then he got in the under-20s, and this might be the last one, so we better go to that one. So we went to Korea to watch that. I don't think the pressure. I mean, he'd talk about the pressure way better than us. My wife watched the games most of the time through her fingers. She finds it unbearable to work. But I just think, how much fun can that be? How much fun can it be to play Brazil, to play against Erling Haaland, all those sort of things. Players in there who. Other super successful players, and funny enough, he over his professional career, he has started bumping into players that he played against in various nationalities, which I think is real fun. So I just enjoy them for watching him do his thing. So I find them less pressure in a way. It's like, look, someone else is really pleased with you, really happy with what you're doing. Good, go for it. and enjoy. We just enjoyed it.
So for his New Zealand under 20s World Cup in Poland in 2019, he was the captain. He was also the co-captain at his college in the States. So is that a case of best player of the team? Here's the armband, or was it a case of here's a guy, a young man with genuine leadership qualities that's bringing these two groups forward on their journey and making people better around them? Like, which of those two was it?
I have no idea. I had nothing to do with those decisions. You'd have to ask Des or whatever. Um, I would like to think it was the latter. I think he is good at working with people. He strives to, even in the position he plays in. Um, I keep saying to him, shoot more, shoot more. He'll always lay the ball off rather than shoot, because he'll think, well, that person's going to get a better shot than me, so he plays the ball. And I think that's how he possibly approached it, but I have no idea about the decision process behind it. So we had no idea he was captain until we went to Poland. We actually tied it in. We took a bit of time off and rode a motorbike around Europe and tied it into going to Poland. So we turned up in Poland, and we met him for the half hour we're allowed to see them, and he said, "Oh, going to be captain," and you're like, "Oh wow, that's the thing." Yeah.
No,
So I yeah,
I was
no
being
idea.
I was being a little bit cheeky. I can only assume it was option two as well. The question I wanted to try and tease out of you is, knowing Joe reasonably well, not super well, but I've been around him a fair bit over the last few years, and he is a leader through and through. It's an obvious one to spot. So, how did you feel he developed those certain leadership qualities, the communication qualities, the bringing people on that journey? Is it something that you as parents put, special weight towards, or is it, having these different steps that he's gradually gone through of, moving out of home, moving abroad, being around, top practitioners? Now, what do you put that down to?
I put it down to that, the latter. I mean, there was no conscious effort. You should be a captain or you should be a leader from us, apart from belief in communication. Encouraging him to communicate, encouraging him to take ownership of the decisions he'd made. But that wasn't with any other goal apart from that's how I think it should be anyway. So there's no ulterior motive there. He, yeah, I think the latter. I think it just is a natural thing. He's left home at 14. He's had to learn to survive and progress and hopefully excel. And then he goes to a completely different culture, completely different country, and has to do it again. So hopefully that is just a growth. What's the word I'm looking for? It's a kind of psychological or spiritual growth that is attached to that, but isn't actually something you are consciously pushing. It's just there.
It's certainly a positive trait for, someone in my position. I'd love to have everybody who are leaders rather than just followers. So I don't think
Yeah.
you get too many leaders. It does cause a bit of an imbalance and some challenges, but leadership as a quality is highly sought after. So again, other ways to potentially try and tease this out of our youngsters, I think would be really important. So we're now right up to the precipice of pre-performance, and now he signs professional. He gets into the All Whites regularly. We would class that now as he is a high performance athlete. So he's made that transition successfully. He's been in that space now for a couple of years. So I think we can say, yep, tick, achieved that transition successfully, which is great. And this is the athletes and coaches listening to this are hopefully on that journey themselves. What can you think back to around that time that because a lot of people fail at this final hurdle, this next part of the journey, right? That successful transition to high performance. Why was Joe successful and fortunate to be able to make that leap? Does it come down to one or two things that you think stand out above the rest, or accumulation of smaller things? Just take that as you wish.
Um, I think. it's possibly accumulation of lots of small things, probably, rather than a magic. I'm not very good on magic bullets. I don't really believe in them. I think you need to you have to do enough to create enough positive things that then they kind of materialize into something. So I think it was a combination of stuff. I mean, he got offered, so he was at year 2 UVA, so it's a 4-year course. He was halfway through. He'd just done Poland World Cup, and Viking said, they saw him and said, do you want to come and have a look? So he went to Norway, and on the back of that, they offered him a contract. Do you want to become professional now? And he thought about it, and he was adamant that he wanted to complete his degree. So he didn't take that opportunity then, and he went back to UVA, and there was many discussions, many, all on the phone with coaches, with of course the Americans. His coach in America really wanted him to stay, and Joe went back. He went back to he declined the first Viking offer, and went back and probably had one of his, touch wood, not his best, but had a really great year at UVA. They lost the College Cup right at the very end on penalties. They just had a stellar season, and it probably, if he made that decision, and boy did he make the right decision, because at the end of it, Viking came back with another offer. They'd watched what had happened, and they came back with another. So it was kind of win-win. He made that call. So yeah, he pulled it off. But I don't think it was any one particular thing. I think it was, a little bit of this there. If you think about it, that coach watched that one game live in Poland, thought, I quite like the look of that kid. Who is he? Looked him up, got in contact. So there's a whole heap of possibility there that was played out.
That's a really pivotal moment, right? Pivotal decision to get right, because
Yeah.
parents and athletes will be at that decision and snap your hand off. You offer me a chance to go professional, I'm taking it, right? Without even having to think about it. But you as a whole collective have decided to turn that down. Now, yeah, there's obviously a decent team at college level to go back and obviously reach the championship game. You don't get that without a good team to kind of fall back on. And as well as the education being a big part of the family's decision right the way through this process to make sure you go and have a degree to fall back upon if something really drastic happens from a sporting perspective. But Viking may not be there in 12 months. There's no guarantee that offer stays there. So he's really made, or collectively, you made a decision to go and back yourself and stay true to your principles, and then let's go see that conversation again.
I would say though, I probably, well, I was more, you should take the first offer. He was the one who said, no, I'm going to go back. So I would say that was a very big moment, because he made it, although we talked about it, I was keener that he took the Viking offer, the first one. He was the one who said, no, this is what I'm going to do. So to me, that represents a huge thing for him, because that is a time where we didn't see, I was on one side, he was on the other, and he made the call. He made that decision, and wow, he totally and utterly got it right. It was interesting. So that UVA team that made the final, we've got Joe. We had a defender called Henry Kessler, who ended up, he did play for the US men's national team briefly. A striker called Daryl Dike, who plays in the championship in the UK. So I mean, it was a really great team. It was a really great team, and I think they all fed off each other, and they all demanded excellence of each other. And I think he made an absolutely the correct decision. The correct decision. And you'd like to think, well, so the interesting enough, so he got to the end of his third year. This is the NCA year, so he's still got one more year to go at UVA. And the American system has a draft system for the kids to move, not kids, kids sounds wrong, for the adults to move out of college soccer and into US soccer. And it's draft, all their sports are draft. So a team picks one player, and that is the first draft pick, and you go and play for that team or whatever. And at the year 3, Adidas have a thing called Generation Adidas, where they select a group of players and say to them, you are actually going to leave with extra sponsorship from Adidas to go into the professional system. And Joe was on the shortlist for that. And so he really had to make a decision then, because if he either had to go into the American system, accept the Adidas offer, if he got it, go on through the American system, or was there anything else? And the other thing else, luckily, was the second Viking offer. So he did have another big decision there to make, and he really wanted to play soccer in Europe. He definitely wanted to play in Europe. So he said, well, that, decision made, I'm going to go to Viking. But he was stuck. He had to, this was like a junction, but with a brick wall in front of it, because he couldn't stay at UVA. He had to go off into pro soccer one way or the other way.
Yeah, this is life, right? It's about weighing up decisions and having the support network like yourselves around to try and make the most informed decision. And we don't always get it right, but there's always, a path that stems from those decisions. Now Joe's made a lot of decisions as part of his journey alongside the family, and you guys have, it's worked out really well, and you'd be pretty proud of the young man or man he is grown into today, irrespective of his sporting attributes. I guess if you were speaking to the athletes listening to this, or younger version of Joe, what's the key message that you want to get through to the younger people to, double down on these certain things? This, turn out to be one of the key cornerstones of Joe's successful transition moments. Some learnings from Joe that maybe he would I might need to get Joe on the podcast.
Yeah, to get Joe, yeah, exactly.
I think that he would potentially say, like, avoid this at all costs, or this set me back a little bit. Speaking to the athletes directly, what's sort of your message for them?
Okay, I really, you'd have to ask him for his bit, and maybe we could set that up. But for me, my number one thing, and for Caroline, my wife, all the way through this, we've always said to him, right from the very beginning, and we're almost going full circle here, we're coming back to futsal. Are you having fun? If you're not having fun doing this, is the time to stop. And that's not, oh, I'm having a bad day, or I've hit a particular hurdle at this time. If you're actually having fun, you can see across the hurdle, what's the other, because I really enjoy playing at UVA. I really enjoy that. So I'm willing to go back there for the third year because I know it's going to be good. I've got all these big decisions and discussions and tricky problems to solve. That might not be fun solving those problems, but overall, are you having fun? And that was one of the key things about futsal, is he just had so much fun playing futsal, and that carried on into football. So my number one advice for young players is, are you having fun? If you're not having fun, go find the other thing you're really good at. If you get a cheap surfboard and paddle out in the surf, you're going to be an amazing surfer. Or maybe you're going to pick up a ball and discover you're a really good cricketer. Whatever it is, find the thing that gives you pleasure so you actually enjoy doing it. Because I saw too many young kids under pressure from various parties, not just parents, who were plainly not having fun. They weren't enjoying it. And they're doing it for the wrong reason then. And I refer back to I believe that for myself as well, my career. I'm really lucky. I've never really had a job. I've just had a complete hoop my entire life, making films all around the world with numerous people, and I've always had fun doing it. So I find that very, very easy. The other thing is the communication side. You just can't beat it. If you know, I know that I also don't want to forget that amidst all this is regular young man growing up or young daughter growing up or whatever. It's very easy to just look at it from the football side, but there is actually a young person here. So going through the same regular problems every young person goes through. So I think the communication side was very, very important for us as a family, making sure that he had the opportunity to talk the pluses, the minuses, the pros, the cons, what he was feeling about any particular thing. And it wasn't like, it wasn't a no-go area. It wasn't an area that couldn't be discussed. It was a chance to just nut it out, talk to your coach, talk to us. Just so those would be my two things.
Yeah, brilliant. The fun, I like it, liken it to maybe joy. And I always speak when I was involved with coach education. When you're in the junior coaching space, it's about lighting the fire within for whatever that activity is. When you move from junior to youth, it's to keep that fire lit. That's our primary job.
Yeah,
It's not technical and tactical. It's if that fire goes out, and especially when we get to senior football, if the fire goes out, play it's like almost impossible. I'd go as far as saying almost impossible that they transition to a high performance environment. They have to have that fire still burning within them, or else players who are maybe less talented and maybe less, have less genetics, but have that fire driving them on, that will take them past. So yeah, really, really important advice. And if your
I
current pathway trajectory, you lose that joy and that fire, take the skill sets that you've adopted and developed so far into a new activity and exercise, and you'll thrive and challenge
yeah,
yourself in that. So yeah, find the thing to strive for and go for it.
I Gareth, I can't agree with you more. I cannot agree with you more as a parent. I 100%. The two key things. What? Okay, I swear on my life, he came to us and said, "I want to play football." I have no idea where that came from. He was playing rugby because all his mates played rugby. Every single one of them. He was in this little team running around, grabbing pieces of string, hanging out of people's shorts. And he came to the next winter and he walked up to us and said, "Dad, I want to play football." So there's a spark. I don't know where that came from. There's a spark. And he has told me this, so I know I can actually speak for him here. One of his favorite things in his life has been hanging out at the gym all Sunday afternoon playing pick-up futsal. He would sit, because I used to organise it, so I'd be there all afternoon, and he'd just sit and he'd just wait for a team to go, "Oh, Joe, we're a player short, could you step in?" And he'd play 5, 6 games on a Sunday afternoon, subbing in any age group, seniors, juniors, middle. He just loved it. And he said to me, some of his happiest memories are just playing futsal, pick up futsal all afternoon. So yeah, I can't agree more with you. You're absolutely spot on.
If we turn the lens now to maybe speaking to coaches, so I've just kind of given you a little bit of my insight, me speaking to a coach, but as a parent, sporting parent, what is some of the messages you want to get across to coaches who are working with kids and youth of a good standard already, around your experiences with a raft of different levels of coaches yourselves, that they should be really listening into, and from a parental perspective, because quite often we feel we know it. We've been on coaching courses. We know how to coach. We're experienced. Um, I'm not a parent, so this is information for gathering for me as well. But as a sporting parent that's kind of going through this and gone through it, what's the key takeaways from a message to a coach that you would give?
Um, I mean, we've been very, very lucky. We've had many good coaches, or Joe's had many good coaches. I think the communication part is crucial. I have seen coaches kind of hide rather than talk, and I think if you're willing to step up and defend your decision or an opinion or whatever, that's so useful for a parent. Just front up, come and tell me, come and say, uh, this is what we need to do, or this is what's got to happen, or this is what we're worried about, or whatever. I think sometimes it's kind of like it's easier and simpler to just go, you know, you're not playing, you're not doing this, and you know, I'd really encourage, and we have been very, very lucky. I think, or even Joe's been very, very lucky. He's had some great coaches who are willing to talk and communicate, and that's usually feeds back into what we were talking about earlier about a little bit of knowledge. Usually it's, you're standing on the touchline and someone tells you something, another parent tells you something, and you're like, where did that come from? You know, the best thing to go to the coach. Hey, we just said, is this true? And usually it's not true, or there's something else, or whatever. So that would be my plea is for everybody, just to keep communicating, make sure everybody's got the best quality best quality information they can.
I'm gonna put you on the spot here. Is there anything you can think of that you may have let yourself down as a sporting parent over your journey?
I hope not. You'd have to ask Joe if we'd let him down. I think that we were very keen that he took, or I was very keen that he took that first Viking contract, and he, that was possibly the biggest moment where we have not seen eye to eye. I mean, you often don't see eye to eye. He wants to do this, I want to do that, whatever. But that was a big moment, and in retrospect, hey, if he ever watches this, I hope he knows that he made absolutely the right call, and I got it 100% wrong. So that would have been possibly the worst. I think I like to think that we put as much effort into trying to get him where he was as we possibly could. I don't have any regrets. Sitting in a coffee shop 5 afternoons a week for 3 hours on your laptop with not at your office is a burden. You kind of put up with it. So no, I don't have any huge regrets, especially because I think he's really happy where he is and the way he's playing. He had a great game on Sunday. On Monday, I watched it. I thought he played brilliantly. So I'm like, yeah, you're doing your thing. You're doing what you wanted to do. So I'm happy about that.
Yeah, you're happy now, and you use the word burden. I'd frame that as an opportunity cost of you as a parent to help.
Yes. Yeah.
See
Yeah.
that joy that you feel now, right? It's
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
spoken a lot, and I appreciate you being so candid. Spoken throughout this whole last hour, lots of little nuggets, speaking mainly to parents. But is there any one last key piece of advice that you would, this is the one thing that's helped me the most around being a sporting parent?
Well, I think it comes off the fun side, I suppose. Is if you can get if you can get pleasure out of your children having fun, then it's going to be all right. It's going to be fine. We've had a complete great time traveling around, watching him play, supporting, being there. So I think the same thing would be for the parents, is find a way that you can have the fun from it. If it was something, I'm lucky, Caroline enjoys coming to watch him play. Though she can't watch him play because she has to watch with her fingers, she enjoys watching him play. If you were in a situation where one of you was really into it and one wasn't, one parent was, one wasn't, and I'd say to the one that wasn't, don't go. Don't put a downer on it. Just, go off and do your thing. Let the other parent take it for a bit. I suppose, yeah, I did make a note on that. I'm just trying to see. Yeah, and don't get swept up in the football. Remember, it's very easy to get swept up in the football, but in that early parts, right through till the, quite late, there's a young person here with many other things going on. Absolutely, the football's important, 100%, really, really important, but it is not the be all and end all. There has to be other things, otherwise it's not going to work.
Yeah, nice. Hey, you've been so gracious with your time. We'll wrap this up with our quick fire questions, and I'm going to read out a sentence. I'd love you to repeat after me and provide your
Yeah.
answer after that for us. So, one question I would like to set me and the audience this week is,
One question I'd like to set you and the audience is all the way through the journey, what are you trying to achieve?
brilliant, love that one. One concept or idea that I have on my mind at the moment is,
One concept, an idea that I have on my mind now is, we haven't hardly touched on it in this thing, is the 10,000 hours concept. I'm a firm believer in that. I think it's done. It worked great for Joe. The talent code, the book, and everything. So we kind of touched on it without actually saying it. So that I keep thinking I must mention that.
nice, that might roll into this one nicely. Provide me a book, movie, or podcast that parents or athletes or coaches should listen to.
Okay, well, this is a tricky one. Sorry, I've got to give you a book, movie, or podcast that parents. Okay, I'm going to give you a book that I'm reading at the moment that is. So I'm going to have to give you the question again. Okay, sorry. My recommendation for a book, a movie, or a podcast that parents should pay attention to, or anyone should pay attention to, is a book by a music producer called Rick Rubin. Rick Rubin is very famous. He formed Def Jam Records. He's very, very influential music producer, and he has written a book about creativity, and every single page just sends my mind sparking off in a million ways. And I know we're talking about creativity, but to me, that is a huge part of football, is encouraging people to experiment, to think, to be willing to fail, to be it's just a mind-blowingly great book. And I should remember the full title, but I can't. But it's Rick Rubin. He's only written one book, and there is, if you're inspired by you're like, oh, I don't want to read a whole book, there is a really great podcast where Rick Rubin is on the BBC in the UK, and it's a half-hour him talking about the book. He was promoting the book. It's, just you listen to that, you'll go and buy the book. So that's what I'd recommend.
You'll plug it. And the previous one, the talent code by
Daniel Coyle. Is it Daniel Coyle? Yeah, Daniel Coyle. Yeah,
awesome, excellent book.
Yeah.
If I had a magic wand that I could change one thing about my sport or my system, what would that would be?
If I had a magic wand and I could change one thing retrospectively, it would be to try and do it without the negativity around belief in excellence. All this, you can't put these kids together because that destroys the clubs. You can't have APFA because that's a private it's like, no, just go with it. Just believe in that. That would have made a huge difference.
The thing that I'm striving for today is?
The thing that I'm striving for today is to work out how to get to Norway as frequently as possible to watch Joe play.
And to close us off, my quote for the week is,
oh, yes. Oh, yes. Here we go. Sorry, I had to, to close this off, my quote for the week is, you can have any two of good, cheap, and quick, but you can only have two of them. Everyone always wants good. I mean, that's a thing we use in the film industry, but I think you can change the words a little bit to fit. You can have it good, cheap, or quick.
Brilliant.
You can have any two of those.
This has been epic.
Thank you.
Yeah, and dig deeper into some insights of a sporting parent that's kind of gone through from a junior all the way through to senior, international, and professional football is a real honour. And you've spoken super candidly about the challenges, the moments as well. We've kind of dug a lot into those, and I really appreciate that. And the parents listening, no doubt, will as well. And hopefully the athletes and the coaches who have made it this far have taken some nuggets away from this story as well. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
I hope so, and thanks very much for having me on. And I hope it helps somebody somewhere. As I said, everyone's going to have a different opinion, but I could only tell you what I think happened for us.
Thanks so much for sticking through to the end of this episode. It would mean the world to us if you could hit the like or share button so we can get these amazing insights out to other like-minded coaches, athletes, and parents. Cheers.